Hi, my name is Michelle, and I was born here in the States as Adam or Eve. There is a reason why I mentioned this, and this is my testimony. I was raised Catholic in Guatemala. I went to a Catholic school, just girls. I believe I had a good but very lonely childhood. I lived in a very small town with dirt roads. My dad has always been funny. My mom was a strict one. And they have a solid marriage to this day. Although I was abused by a family member when I was a child, but I didn't realize it until I was 16. Even though I told my parents, they didn't know how to handle it. And I had to find forgiveness in my heart and let it go, since I was gonna be around that person for the rest of my life. Michelle, in the flesh, even though I was raised in religion, did pretty much whatever she wanted to. As Adam or Eve, we can be good or we can be bad and think we're okay. I got married, had my children, got a divorce, and I made a lot of mistakes during my years as a young single mom. I kept dating, trying to find the one, started going to church again, and I know I wanted something different. Life in another country might get tough for single women. We are seen as objects. We are used and taken advantage of. I also got raped at gunpoint in my early 30s. I also got sued for being too strict on my older kids. I wasn't able to see them for a year and a half. Then, thanks to connections, got a better paid job, got to move to the city in a nice house, nice neighborhood, but not everything was perfect. They stopped paying us due to bad financial management. And my best friend then, she asked me, what's your plan B? And she told me what my plan B must have been. I talked to my kids and my parents, and they finally agreed for me to move to the land where I was born. I sold everything, and I came here 8 years ago to my cousin's house. I asked God to be with me, and He was all the time. But I recognized I made all these decisions in the flesh. One day, probably a couple months after I moved here, I woke up in tears. When I woke up, trouble inside, I stayed in bed for a while. Then this song kept playing in my head, Home from Philip Phillips. You can find the link below. I heard it before, but I never really paid attention to the lyrics. I looked it up and I knew it was God talking to me. He found a way of talking to me, telling me everything was gonna be okay. I also married to who my husband is today pretty fast. And then the pandemic happened. My marriage started suffering, and my happy time was just taking long walks, crying and praying. One day, after crying so much, a butterfly landed in my cheek. I knew, or I felt like God Himself was giving me a kiss. And I swear I heard Him talking to me, telling me He was gonna take care of everything. That was my first supernatural experience with the Lord. Weeks after, I joined an online ministry for spiritual growth. They were advertising it as how to get to know God and have a relationship with Him. I wanted to belong to these ministries from a long time ago. The preacher always inspired me. And hear this. This ministry started in Argentina. The same day I signed up, they called me to welcome me. They asked me where I was, and boom, the person lived down the street from me. Now she's one of my best friends, and she's also from Argentina. Her mom belonged to that church since years ago. And a beautiful new journey started with a new friend. So they taught me how to get into the Lord's presence, and that all I had to do was willingly offer myself as a sacrifice to have a relationship with Him, to die to everything that was failing me, the good, the bad, then to call His name, to proclaim His promises over my life. And wow, I thought I was perfect. Nuh-uh, I wasn't. I learned the true meaning of the cross too. You can see I love it now. Before, the cross reminded me of Jesus' suffering. I didn't like the thought of Him suffering like that. Now, the cross taught me to die to myself every day. All the Adam and Eve I have in me because of the original sin, so that He can take over. I learned that going to the cross and dying to myself is an exchange for my failed humanity, so that Jesus can rise in me, live inside of me, make me a new creation in Him. And He starts growing in us and taking over. The revelation of the true meaning of Jesus' death and resurrection still has me in awe. From there, my favorite Bible verse, Galatians 2:22. I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave His life for me. Later on, the same friend from the online ministry invited me to the one that is now my home church. And believe me, the first time I refused. I gotta confess, I used to call people who would attend Christian churches crazy. She invited me a few months later again, and I said yes, without knowing what the Lord did to me. I loved it. I was raising my arms, singing to the Lord like those crazy people I used to criticize. I knew I was in love with my Lord, and I continue to. So I keep spending time with the Lord every day. I die to myself. I pray over the Word. I believe and trust His ways. He is guiding me to what He wants me to do. I want to help others to get to know Him, experience Him, because He is an experience. I just want to help Him with His plans and love for His creation, to go back to Him, to the Garden of Eden, and live with Him in eternity. He gave me a new life purpose. Now, I am a victim's advocate to victims of sexual crimes. What a turn, huh? Only God could turn my pain into purpose. I am also studying now to be a faith-based counselor. He has been restoring my relationships. I have 2 out of my 3 kids now living here with me. I have countless answered prayers, see miracles more and more every day. He's taking over. Jesus is growing more and more within me, and a lot of it happens without effort. Since He does everything with me, He lives within me. His glory, He dresses me with His glory. I learned that all He wants me to do is love Him back with all my heart, be my one and only, first and eternal love. And that is what He wants for you and everyone else. All glory to you, Lord. Thank you for loving us so much. And thank you for hearing me out.